The diplomatic starship Radiant Claw moved through the dark like a floating city of steel and light. Its hull was layered with armor grown from living alloys, designed by the apex predator species known across the galaxy as the Krithar. They were tall, horned, and built for violence. Their jaws could crush bone. Their instincts ruled empires. Wherever they went, weaker species bowed. Princess Sarilith of the Krithar stood on the main observation deck, her clawed hands resting behind her back. She watched distant stars slide past and felt the familiar calm of superiority. This ship carried representatives from many allied races, but the Krithar commanded it. This journey was meant to show strength. It was meant to remind everyone who truly ruled the stars. Humans were among the guests. Sarilith barely noticed them. They were small, soft, too quiet. They moved with strange caution, as if always aware of their surroundings but unwilling to challenge them. Humans were known for clever tools and strange persistence, but no one considered them dangerous in person. Useful, perhaps, never frightening. One human in particular caught her eye only because he stood slightly apart from the others. His name, according to the data slate, was Elias Ward, apprentice technician. He wore a simple uniform, no markings of rank, no weapons. His posture was relaxed but not lazy. His eyes moved often, taking in details most ignored. When Krithar guards passed near him, he stepped aside without protest. He looked exactly like what the file claimed, a background figure meant to assist real leaders. Sarilith dismissed him from her thoughts. The ship entered the outer edge of the Velkar expanse, a region feared even by apex species. Pirate clans and predator empires fought endlessly there. This was why the Radiant Claw traveled with escorts, and why Sarilith herself was present. Her presence was a warning. The first alert sounded without panic. Unidentified vessels, multiple, closing fast. Sarilith's ears twitched slightly. Interest, not fear. The bridge filled with movement. Officers reported energy readings, weapon signatures, and hull designs that confirmed what everyone already suspected. The Dravek Dominion. Even among predators, the Dravek were feared. Larger than Krithar, more aggressive, less patient. They ruled through terror and ritual violence. Encounters with them rarely ended peacefully. Sarilith smiled faintly. This would be a test. The Dravek fleet surrounded the Radiant Claw with brutal efficiency. Jagged warships locked into attack positions. A communication request came through, carrying the unmistakable growl of a Dravek commander. "Surrender your vessel. Boarders will confirm your submission." Some of the allied species aboard began to panic. Sarilith sensed it immediately. Their heart rates rose. Their pheromones shifted. Weakness always revealed itself. She stepped forward. "This is Krithar diplomatic space," she replied calmly. "Withdraw or face consequences." Silence followed. Then laughter. A harsh, scraping sound echoed through the bridge. "Your claws are dull here, Princess. We will board." Before further response could be made, docking clamps struck the hull. Sarilith felt a ripple of tension move through the ship. Even her elite guards adjusted their stances. This was no simple display anymore. Dravek warriors poured in through breached corridors, towering figures with scarred hides and glowing eyes. They moved like predators entering prey territory, slow and deliberate. Weapons hummed in their hands. The allied delegates were herded back. Some Krithar guards stepped forward, teeth bared. And yet, amid the chaos, one figure moved quietly toward a secondary control panel near the wall. Elias Ward. No one ordered him to move. No one stopped him. He knelt beside an access port, his fingers working quickly. His face showed no fear, no anger, only focus. A Dravek warrior noticed him. The massive creature strode forward, looming over the human. "You," it growled. "Look at me." Elias slowly looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, something strange passed between them. The Dravek paused, its nostrils flaring. It frowned, confused by something it could not name. Then Elias spoke, his voice calm and clear. "Your left flank is exposed. Your commander doesn't know it yet." The Dravek snarled and raised its weapon. Before it could strike, the lights flickered. Gravity shifted. The Dravek stumbled, claws scraping against the deck. Around the ship, doors slammed shut with precise timing, sealing boarding teams apart from one another. Weapon systems across the Dravek fleet went dark, not all at once, but in a pattern that suggested deliberate control. Saralith's eyes narrowed. This was no accident. On the bridge, officers shouted reports. External weapons offline. They're losing internal coordination. The Dravek commander roared through the open channel, demanding explanations from his troops. Elias stood and stepped back as gravity stabilized. He adjusted a setting, then another. The access port sealed smoothly. The Dravek warrior stared at him now, uncertainty replacing aggression. Elias met its gaze again. "You should fall back," he said. "Your odds improve if you do." The Dravek stepped back, not because it was ordered to, because every instinct it had was screaming caution. Saralith watched this exchange with growing disbelief. Apex predators did not retreat from humans, ever. She moved closer, studying Elias as if seeing him for the first time. His posture had changed. He was no longer blending into the background. He stood like someone used to being obeyed. "Who are you?" she demanded. Elias glanced at her, recognition flickering in his eyes. He gave a slight nod of respect. "Still an apprentice," he said, "just not the kind you expected." The Dravek commander finally appeared in person, forcing his way onto the bridge with brute strength. He was enormous, his presence crushing. His eyes locked onto Elias almost immediately. The commander sniffed the air. His expression shifted. He felt it too, something unseen. Something dangerous. "You did this," the Dravek said slowly. Elias did not deny it. "You miscalculated," he replied. "You assumed fear would win faster than thought." The commander bared his teeth. "You are small." "Yes," Elias agreed. "That's why we learned other ways to survive." Around them, the Dravek warriors hesitated. They watched their leader carefully. Apex predators followed strength, but they also respected outcomes. And the outcome here was turning against them. Saralith felt a strange chill. For the first time in her life, she realized the human standing before her was not prey. He was something else entirely. Outside the ship, Dravek vessels began to pull back, their formations breaking. Not fleeing, repositioning, reconsidering. The commander growled softly, then raised one clawed hand. "Withdraw," he ordered. The Dravek obeyed. As they retreated, silence filled the bridge. The allied delegates stared. Krithar guards lowered their weapons slowly. Saralith turned fully toward Elias. The princess of an apex species studied a human apprentice as if he were a new force of nature. And for the first time, she felt uncertainty, not fear, but something far more unsettling. Respect. The journey was no longer a simple display of power. Something had changed. And Princess Saralith knew this was only the beginning. The radiant claw drifted in the Velkar expanse, its hull glinting faintly in the scattered light of distant stars. Inside, the atmosphere felt charged, though no alarms rang. The Dravek fleet had retreated, but the tension lingered like a heavy fog. Every species aboard the vessel sensed it, but none more keenly than Princess Saralith. She had thought humans were fragile, predictable. Elia's ward had proven otherwise. Saralith followed him quietly down one of the lower corridors, where the ship's hum mixed with the faint whine of systems recalibrating after the recent events. Elias moved with effortless precision, hands brushing over consoles, eyes scanning readouts, lips murmuring calculations that somehow aligned with the ship's operations. He seemed smaller, ordinary, but now every movement carried weight. He wasn't just reacting, he was anticipating. The princess felt a strange mix of admiration and wariness. He wasn't just clever, he understood predators. Not the apex predators aboard the ship, but the Dravek outside. Their instincts, their strategies, their fears. He had turned their aggression into hesitation, hesitation into withdrawal. That required something the Krithar had never fully appreciated in humans, a mind attuned to systems and consequences rather than raw strength. Elias paused near an access panel, his fingers dancing over the touch interface. "Princess," he said without looking up, "the Dravak won't be gone for long. They'll regroup, they always do, and they'll remember how they were embarrassed today." Saralith's eyes narrowed. "And you? What are you thinking?" He finally met her gaze. "They think in terms of immediate gain. I think in terms of patterns and consequences. The moment they step out of line, the advantage is ours." Her claws flexed at her sides. She had never seen a human speak with such quiet command. Normally, humans deferred to Krithar authority. Elias did not defer, he assessed. The next hours passed in a mix of quiet monitoring and preparation. Crew members whispered theories about what had happened, some impressed, others fearful. Saralith remained at his side, watching. She noted how every subtle adjustment, power rerouting, sensor recalibration, door lockdown, was deliberate. Elias moved through the ship like it was an extension of himself, a predator among predators but unseen. Suddenly, alarms rang. Another signal, distant but unmistakable, marked the approach of multiple warships. Not Dravak, but another predator species, the Xylar Dominion, known for its cunning rather than brute force. They had heard of the Radiant Claw's encounter with the Dravak and saw opportunity. Elias straightened. "They don't know who we are yet," he said, "but they will." The princess followed him to the tactical observation room. She stood behind him, watching his fingers glide over controls, manipulating power grids, adjusting shields, and rerouting sensor outputs. He worked quickly, silently issuing commands that seemed to materialize from nowhere. When the Xylar fleet appeared on sensors, they were calculating, cold, precise. But Elias was faster. He anticipated their first moves, locking their approach vectors into traps. He did not attack, not yet. He created the impression that the ship was stronger than it seemed, that every corridor could be sealed in an instant, that their smallest misstep would be fatal. The Xylar fleet hesitated. Warships that had terrorized countless species slowed, circled, waited. They had studied Krithar ships before, they knew them. But this human had reshaped reality in ways they could not immediately understand. Saralith stepped closer. "How are you doing this?" she asked. Elias looked at her, expression calm. "I don't fight like you fight. I anticipate, predict, and influence decisions. Predators respect strength, yes, but they respect control even more." The Xylar commander's voice came over the communication channel. It was measured, formal. "We will withdraw for now, but know this, next time your small one will not be enough." Saralith turned to Elias. "Your small one, you mean yourself." He shrugged slightly, a faint smile. "I am underestimated. That is humanity's advantage." That night, Saralith could not sleep. She stood on the observation deck, staring at the void, recalling every move Elias had made. She realized humans had something apex predators often lacked: patience, adaptability, and an instinct for survival not based on claws or jaws but on thought. The next day, the ship's captain called a council. Representatives of multiple species gathered, discussing the implications of recent events. Saralith entered with Elias at her side, and murmurs rippled through the room. Humans rarely attended these councils, and yet here he was, standing confidently, quietly directing the discussion. Delegates asked questions. Elias answered not with arrogance but with clarity. He described the Dravak encounter in detail, outlining potential threats, possible countermeasures, and long-term strategies. His recommendations were precise, sometimes bold, often counterintuitive, but effective. One Krithar general leaned forward. "This human, he predicts behavior as well as a true apex predator." "How?" Saralith watched Elias, noting his calm demeanor. "He sees patterns," she said softly. "Not just strength, but intentions, weaknesses, reactions. Apex predators often ignore subtlety. He uses it." Elias finished speaking and silence followed. Eyes shifted between him and the princess. For the first time, the humans in the room were no longer background figures. They were central. Outside the council, Sarilith approached him. "I underestimated you," she admitted. He shook his head. "You did what every predator does. You measured only what you could see." She nodded slowly. "And now, what do we do about the Dravik and Xyler?" He looked out at the stars. "We prepare. We remain calm. And we remember that even predators respect consequences more than power." Over the next week, Elias continued to work, integrating himself with ship systems and crew alike. He identified vulnerabilities in the hull, rerouted power to maximize defense, and created contingencies for every known predator tactic. Meanwhile, Sarilith observed, learning. Humans did not fight like Krithar. They anticipated, adapted, and exploited weaknesses with subtlety. Then a new threat emerged. The sensors picked up a massive energy signature, not like anything previously recorded. Ships were moving unnaturally fast, almost slipping through space. This was neither Dravik nor Xyler. It was something else, something ancient, enormous, and intelligent. The crew panicked. Even experienced Krithar officers voiced concern. Sarilith's instincts urged her to act with the authority of her kind, to dominate, to strike first. But Elias walked calmly to the main observation window, placing his hand on the cool metal surface. "Do not fear what you cannot yet understand," he said. "Observe, measure, and respond. Instinct alone will not save you." Sarilith realized he was right. Apex predators thrived on fear, on immediate action. Humans thrived on calculation, on foresight. She stepped back, letting him lead. As the unknown force approached, Elias issued precise adjustments to shields, weapons arrays, and navigation. He predicted movements, calculated energy flows, and positioned the radiant claw in the safest possible vector. The unknown presence passed without aggression, scanning, then moving on. Damage was minimal, chaos avoided. Princess Sarilith finally understood something profound. Humans were not small, weak, or fragile. They survived not by strength but by thinking ahead, by controlling situations, by turning fear into strategy. Apex predators often underestimated them, and that mistake could be fatal. That evening, she found Elias in a quiet corner reviewing sensor logs. "You've done more than anyone else aboard," she said. He looked up, expression neutral. "I do what humans always do. We survive. We adapt, and we turn disadvantages into advantages." She studied him, her respect growing. Not just admiration, but a recognition of a different kind of strength, one that apex predators often overlooked. In that moment, Sarilith decided to learn, to observe, to understand humanity, not just as an ally but as a force to respect. Because if apex predators had underestimated humans once, it would not happen again. And somewhere deep inside, she knew the galaxy would never be the same with Elias Ward among them. The radiant claw sailed silently through the void, the distant stars stretching into long streaks of light, as if time itself bent around the ship. Princess Sarilith stood on the observation deck, her claws resting lightly on the railing. She had watched humans before, studied their habits in reports and simulations, but nothing had prepared her for what she had seen in Elias Ward. He was no longer just an apprentice. He was a force that shifted the balance of power without raising a weapon. Even the apex predators of the galaxy, the Dravik and Xyler, had stepped back when he moved. Elias approached quietly, his presence calm yet commanding. He stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back, watching the expanse of space with the same measured attention that he applied to everything. "They won't come back immediately," he said. "Predators remember humiliation. They wait and plan. They will respect distance until they understand it is safer not to challenge us." Sarilith nodded, her eyes tracing the faint trails of distant fleets. "You make it sound easy," she said, though her voice carried no mockery, only curiosity and a hint of respect. How do you know what they will do? Elias turned to her, his dark eyes steady. I don't know. I calculate. I watch. I understand patterns. Humans have always survived by noticing things predators ignore, by acting when others hesitate, and by using what is available. Strength is not always muscle or claws. Sometimes it is the mind. The princess considered this. Apex predators like herself relied on instinct, on immediate recognition of strength. Humans did not fight the same way. They studied, they adapted, they manipulated circumstances to their advantage. And Elias had done it flawlessly, guiding a ship full of species stronger than humans through the Velkar expanse without a single life lost. The next day, the ship received a signal, a call from the Velkar Conclave, a coalition of mid-tier species who govern trade routes through the expanse. They had heard about the Dravek encounter and the Xylar hesitation. Their message was cautious, tinged with respect, even fear. They requested a meeting with Princess Sarilith and the human who had orchestrated these events. In the council chamber, Sarilith entered first, followed by Elias. Delegates from half a dozen species watched them closely, noting the small human walking with the Krithar princess. Murmurs passed among the assembly. Humans rarely took the spotlight, rarely did they command attention. And yet, here he was, standing beside a Krithar princess, unassuming yet central. The council began with formalities, but the questions quickly turned to the human. How did you protect this vessel? Asked one delegate, a four-limbed creature with translucent skin. The Dravek are ruthless, and the Xylar fleet is not weak. Elias answered calmly, his voice steady. I did not fight them with force. I anticipated their actions, exploited their assumptions, and guided the ship to respond faster than they could react. They expected fear, aggression, or hesitation. Instead, they encountered control. A silence followed. The delegates studied him, trying to measure this small creature who had bested predators stronger than any of them. Sarilith watched with quiet pride. Humans were underestimated constantly, yet they survived, thrived, and shaped outcomes that apex predators often could not. One of the delegates, a tall creature with eyes like molten silver, asked, "And what do you want? Humans are not a dominant species. Do you seek to command, to conquer?" Elias shook his head. No, humans survive, adapt, and influence. We act where necessary and withdraw where prudent. Our goal is not domination but balance. We do not kneel to predators, nor do we seek unnecessary conflict. We respond to threats, and we turn disadvantages into advantages. The council murmured in agreement and surprise. Even the most skeptical delegates were impressed. Humans were small, yes, but dangerous in ways that brute strength could not measure. Later, the princess found herself walking with Elias through a quieter part of the ship. She studied him closely. You could have taken control completely, she said. You could have humiliated them beyond repair, yet you did not. Why? He looked at her, expression calm. Humans survive by understanding the consequences of action. Humiliation breeds retaliation. We influence, we guide, we anticipate, but we do not seek needless revenge. Predators may not understand this, but balance ensures survival. Sarilith considered this. Apex predators thrived on dominance, on asserting power. Humans thrived on thinking ahead, on manipulating situations to avoid unnecessary risk. Elias had turned fear into strategy, aggression into caution. He had won respect without showing his teeth. Days passed, and the radiant claw continued its journey. Trade routes were reopened under human guidance. Predator fleets adjusted their paths to avoid unnecessary conflict, and even the Velkar Conclave began to reconsider their alliances. All of this without a single battle, without a single human raised hand in anger. But then came news of a far greater threat. A massive, unknown fleet had been detected at the edge of charted space. Its vessels were immense, unlike anything previously recorded. The sensor readings were inconsistent, suggesting advanced cloaking and adaptive defenses. This was no ordinary predator. It was intelligent, vast, and potentially hostile. Panic rippled through the radiant claw. Even experienced Krithar officers felt unease. Sarilith instinctively wanted to strike first to show strength, but Elias stopped her. "Do not act yet," he said. "Observe, measure, understand. Fear leads to mistakes. Patience leads to survival." The princess hesitated, then nodded. She had learned enough to trust him. Humans might be small, but their decisions carried weight far beyond appearances. Elias and the crew worked quickly. Sensors scanned the unknown fleet. Shields were adjusted, weapon arrays recalibrated, and the radiant claw positioned in a trajectory that minimized risk. He analyzed every possible movement of the unknown vessels, anticipating how they might respond. Hours passed. Tension thickened. Then the fleet moved, slowly at first, then accelerating along an impossible path. It passed near the radiant claw, scanning, studying, but making no hostile move. Damage was minimal. Lives were preserved. Panic was avoided. The princess could hardly believe it. Elias had predicted their behavior, calculated their intentions, and positioned the ship to survive a confrontation that even apex predators might have lost. She understood now what she had only glimpsed before. Human strength was not in muscle or instinct. It was in thought, in anticipation, in control over chaos. Later, as the ship sailed in calm space, Sarilith found Elias in a quiet observation chamber, reviewing sensor logs. She studied him for a long moment before speaking. "I underestimated humans. I underestimated you." He shook his head. "You measured only what you could see. Humans survive by noticing what others ignore, by acting when others hesitate. Strength is not always teeth and claws." Sarilith nodded. "Then the galaxy will have to learn the same lesson." Elias smiled faintly. "Perhaps. But it is not fear we wish to inspire. It is understanding. Predators will learn that humans cannot be controlled in the same way. They will respect strategy, anticipation, and balance, or they will fail." The princess considered this carefully. She realized that apex predators could dominate the galaxy with strength alone. Humans could shape it with thought, foresight, and careful manipulation of circumstances. One underestimated human had already shifted the balance in the Velkar expanse. Over the following weeks, alliances shifted. Predators who once dismissed humans began seeking dialogue rather than battle. Trade routes became safer under human observation. Even species who had survived on fear and brute force began to adjust their tactics. The presence of Elias Ward, small in size but immense in influence, changed how the galaxy perceived humanity. Princess Sarilith observed it all, standing beside him as equals. She had begun to understand what apex predators often failed to see. The mind could be mightier than the claws that tore flesh. Humans could be dangerous in ways that were subtle, patient, and relentless. And in Elias, she had seen it realized fully. At the edge of known space, the radiant claw prepared for its next mission. Fleets gathered, allies aligned, and predators reconsidered their strategies. Sarilith stood beside Elias once more, looking at the stars. "You've done more than anyone aboard this ship," she said. He shook his head, expression calm. "I do what humans have always done. We survive. We adapt. We turn disadvantage into advantage. And sometimes we remind apex predators that strength alone is not everything." The princess smiled faintly, a mix of respect and wonder. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. And she, Princess Sarilith of the Krithar, had learned that sometimes the smallest figure in the room could wield the greatest power, if one only looked closely enough. As the radiant claw sailed into the unknown, the stars stretching endlessly ahead, Sarilith realized that with humans like Elias among the stars, the galaxy was about to enter a new era. One not ruled solely by strength, but by intelligence, strategy, and the quiet, unyielding determination of a species underestimated far too long. And somewhere deep within her, The princess felt the thrill of discovery, the excitement of learning from a human who had shown her a new way to see the universe, and a new way to respect power that did not roar, but thought. The radiant claw glided onward, carrying its crew, its princess, and a single human who had changed everything. Apex predators had stepped back, the galaxy had paused, and humanity had stepped forward.